Hi, I'm Natasha Jarosak, a mid-sized law firm marketing manager with Thomson Reuters. Welcome to Leadership in Action, a series of short, timely, and relevant interviews with managing partners on issues important to running a successful mid-sized law firm. These interviews are part of the Managing Partner series presented by Thomson Reuters in affiliation with the Managing Partner Forum. Podcasts are hosted by John Remsen Jr., CEO of the Managing Partner Forum and president of the Remsen Group, an Atlanta-based consulting firm that works exclusively with law firms. Our guest this month is Richard Weiss, founding member of Weiss Serota, a South Florida-based firm with 60 attorneys. Richard focuses his practice on governmental and municipal law advice and guidance for some of the most high-profile clients in Southern Florida, including American Airlines and the Miami Heat basketball team. During the past 20 years, he has also served as city attorney for nearly a dozen South Florida cities. Welcome, John and Richard.
Hello. Thank you, Natasha, and welcome, Richard. Glad you're here for our Leadership in Action podcast. Well, we appreciate your participation. We're here to talk today about something really, really important, and that is clients and client service, client loyalty, and how important it is to take darn good care of the clients you want to keep. Before we get started, Richard, I know you feel passionately about this topic. Tell us a little bit about your firm and its history.
Well, our firm, John, was formed about almost 25 years ago. We all had done some work with local governments, but realized that there was a place in the market for a firm that specialized in representing local governments, and on the other side, representing, obviously being careful about conflicts, representing private companies that wanted to do business with local government. And so we started out and created our firm. The basis of our firm is what we call our unifying principles. And all of the things that we're going to talk about today are contained in our unifying principles, which I'd be happy to make available to you so that you can maybe attach it to this recording. There are 10 of them, and they talk about dealing honestly and ethically with clients, fostering open communications, respect for each individual in the firm, understanding the problems of our clients, consider each phone call or request from a client as an opportunity to provide service. We strive to have each service we provide for the client be more than the client expected, let every client feel that they've received more than what they paid for, provide excellent service, and then do something else. And there's a number of other ones.
Sounds like most of those unifying principles have a lot to do with client service.
Yes, it does, and I think that that's critically important to getting clients and keeping clients. And part of what we try to do is develop respect for those clients, and also respecting the people within our firm that are dealing with those clients, and give them responsibility and the opportunity to develop their own relationships with those clients.
Well, I know, Richard, having gotten to know you, you are a passionate believer in how important this is. And how are you putting some of those unifying principles into play? What specifically are you doing to make sure that you're delivering consistently those things you promise your clients?
Well, the first thing that is the basis for anything is that we do good work. We do good work, and we do try to do in every single case to certainly live up to the client's expectations, but do exceed their expectations. And as part of that work, we do try very hard to develop relationships with those clients. And one of my little sayings is that years ago I invested it in a relationship with a client. It was the best investment I ever made. And we do try to become anything from good business associates to actual friends with our clients. Unifying principles, implementing those kind of things. We let clients know that we're interested in their businesses. Now, this is a sort of a hackneyed expression, but when we represent a company, we go, if it's a steel mill, we go to the steel mill. We walk around, we see what's going on with their business. We do that for two reasons. First of all, it shows the client that we are actually interested in their business, not just interested in what they're doing and in their company, as opposed to just getting their legal work. And second, it gives us a good knowledge base for understanding how we can help that client if some issue comes up, and we understand sort of how the plant works and how their structure works. That helps us to solve those problems as well. One of the things that we find is sort of an absolute here, that we've said is an absolute here, is returning of phone calls and communications with clients. And we, part of our unifying principles, which we continually have to reemphasize, but we do, is that client calls get returned every day. And that is the longest that a client's phone call should go unreturned. We try to, when we can, immediately return a client's phone call, immediately respond to a client's phone call. For instance, you can put in auto texts. And for instance, if I see a client who has called and I'm in a meeting, as opposed to letting that call get unanswered, I send them back an email, and I have an auto text that says, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you when I'm done. So that they know that I've gotten the call and that, you know, I'm responding to it. But and clients understand that you can't jump all the time. The other thing that we like to do is if a client calls us and we don't get them back the first time, we call them again. So try to return their call at least twice. That way they know that you're responsive to what their question is.
You know, and so often, as you said, Richard, it's that acknowledgement that I've gotten your message, I'm on it. And lawyers tend not to do that. But we look at the studies, and clearly responsiveness and accessibility is something that clients are increasingly demanding. And that turnaround time has really gotten shorter and shorter in this day and age.
Right.
You've got some great little tips and suggestions I've heard you pass on to younger lawyers in terms of getting to know the client, the business, cultivating that relationship. What other things have you found to be really, really effective to make that happen?
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's a whole other topic, but I'm not a big believer in lunches. I'm an anti-lunch person, but I am a big believer in spending time with clients. And I think that the key to really developing relationships with either prospects or with clients themselves is to try to relate to them on some other level other than let's go have lunch. If you find that a client has an interest in music, guitars, let's say, and you have some interest in that yourself, try to plan a little field trip with them to go to a guitar store. I mean, that is a lot more, and maybe you get a sandwich afterwards, but that's a lot more effective in actually building a relationship and having something to talk about beyond just the legal practice. And part of that is becoming somewhat broader yourself as a lawyer. And everybody has things that they're interested in, but if you push the limits of what you're interested in so that when you meet somebody or have a client and they start to talk to you about golf, at least you know something about golf. Maybe you play golf, maybe you'd like to play golf, maybe you watch golf on TV, but the more you know and the more interesting you are as a person, the easier it is going to be for you to relate to people. And in that regard, I really think reading books is very important, and reading interesting books so that you have some other way to relate to people and have sort of interesting things to talk about.
I think another great resource, wasn't around when we were kids, is LinkedIn and Facebook. Right. And it's amazing what you can learn about a person just by going online and Googling and absorbing what you can and finding that area of common interest. I'm right with you. Develop friendships and move beyond lunch and doing work, but friendships.
Right. But John, I think what's really important is that this can't be fake. It's got to be real, and I have never encouraged a lawyer here or done it myself to just be friends with somebody just because you're trying to get their legal business. I don't think that that's sincere. I think people see through it, and it's also, I don't think, a very good way to live your life. I mean, I think most people, if you look, you really will find something that's interesting and to like about them. And they don't need to be your best friend, but I think that when you're not sincere and genuine with people, they know it.
from time to time, we run into unhappy clients. As hard as we try, something goes awry. You end up with a dissatisfied client on your hands. How do you handle those situations?
Well, if you're trying to resolve that situation and you've done no background work, if you've set no relationships in place, that's awfully hard to do. And so what we try to do is to have at least 2, sometimes 3 senior lawyers in our firm have relationships with the clients that we're serving, with our larger clients. And I think that that when by having those relationships, and this has happened, it happens from time to time. One of our partners gets very busy with something and they're not getting back to the client as quickly as possible, and another lawyer who's dealing with them on maybe another partner who's dealing with them on something else will say, hey Richard, could you give Bill a call? He's just not getting back to me. And then I can have a phone call with my partner, but by having more than one relationship with a client, it gives you a release valve, a second release valve, so that the client is not just sitting there and stewing and wonder why their work is not done. And then once you have those relationships, I don't believe in solving problems through electronic mail or if you can avoid phone calls. I think the right thing to do, if there's a problem with a client, you get in your car or you get on a plane and you go over and you talk to them, and FaceTime. But that helps. It's much easier to resolve a problem face to face, secondarily over the phone. But I don't like the electronic mail for that purpose. I don't think, notwithstanding what my grown-up children tell me, I think it's very difficult to establish relationships with people with electronic mail. I think phone calls are much better, and person-to-person is the best. I think that electronic mail is good to communicate with clients on substantive matters that are not judgment calls or scheduling or procedural things. But if there's something that really needs to be discussed, I really am a big proponent of either a phone call or a visit. And I think that one of the mistakes that younger lawyers make is they think that they can create a network for themselves using electronic mail and social media. And I think that social media has a place in developing client relationships, but I think it's just the first step and needs to be followed up with FaceTime.
I don't think anything replaces FaceTime. I think social media can reinforce, maybe help keep you top-of-mind awareness, but in no way does it replace or substitute for the FaceTime. How do you feel about gift giving to clients?
I give. I'm always looking for things that are that I can send to clients, and I'm not talking about. Of course, you have clients where they want tickets from us for the Heat basketball team. They know we represent them, or they want other things. And I understand that, and from time to time, expensive dinners and very expensive gifts and all of that are appropriate. But what I like to do, and I think that it's a lot of fun, is going back to my guitar player example. If I happen to be in Nashville and the number one guitar store is in Nashville and it's open, and I go in and for a couple bucks buy them some guitar picks or something with the name of that guitar store on it, I think they appreciate that as much as some thoughtless bottle of wine or some other, another pen or something like that. Again, unless they're a pen collector, in which case that could be okay. But so we've sent all sorts of things. Last week, I found that somebody was collecting a certain type of old 45 record albums, and they were missing this one thing for their one album for their set. And so my assistant, who's very good treasure finder, found them the album, and we delivered it to them.
Wow.
So these go, and I'm always listening to find out what little thing that I could do for that client. First of all, and this is where you have to be. I find it fun to try to find those things, and doesn't involve a lot of money. For instance, in our unifying principles, it says provide excellent service and then do something else. When we used to do residential real estate closings, when we gave them the keys, we used to attach a little rabbit's foot to them. It was a silly little thing, but people really appreciated it because it showed that it was just more than a real estate closing to you. So I really encourage those things.
Richard, anything before we close out? We try to keep these podcasts to about 10 minutes, but this is such an important topic. Anything that we haven't touched on
the other thing I would say,
want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, the other thing I would say in resolving clients' disputes is you need to go into, again, it's never about the money, but it's always about the money. And I think in going into these where you have a problem with a client, you have to really have the attitude that the important thing is to keep the client and make the client happy. And we have sort of an unwritten policy, which is that if we need to write off time to make the client happy, if the client happy, if it's an ongoing relationship, we're not trying to negotiate with that client down to the last dollar. We want them to feel like that they're part of us, that we're part of them, and that this is part of an ongoing relationship, not just a matter of how much money we can put in the bank that month.
Richard, all good stuff, so practical. It makes such sense, but so often neglected by lawyers and law firms, it seems to me. So we appreciate your time this afternoon and being a part of our podcast series. And Natasha, I will kick it back to you.
Thank you so much, John and Richard. That was great. That's all for this edition of the Managing Partner Series, Leadership in Action. For more information and resources, please visit www.legalsolutions.com/managing-partner.